we have a tendency to deify others and diminish ourselves. Nothing is ever as easy as we think it is. On the other hand, nothing is ever as difficult as we think it is. Your story is about you, but your story isn't for you. Like what you're going through right now, it's for a greater purpose.
Welcome back to the Leadership Puzzle. I'm your host, Jeff Lupinacci, and today we're diving into a topic that sits at the heart of great leadership, but doesn't always get the attention it deserves: the power of your story. My guest is Bill Blankschaen, and he is the author of Your Story Advantage. He's also founder of StoryBuilders and the creative mind behind some of the most influential voices in business today. Bill has assisted leaders, entrepreneurs, and changemakers in articulating the message that shapes their impact, influence, and, yes, even their income. His belief is simple: every story matters. And when we learn to tell ours effectively, we make a difference and we make the world a better place. So let's jump in. Hey, Bill, welcome to the Leadership Puzzle. I'm so excited to have you on today.
Well, so glad to be here, Jeff. Looking forward to talking about storytelling and stories and what it takes to live a story. So glad to be here.
Well, I know that a lot of people are struggle with telling a story, and you have a brand new book that just came out in October, Your Story Advantage. Tell us a little bit about it and why you wrote it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate that. I wrote it because I think most people don't realize that they have a story advantage in the first place. Most people don't realize the power of their own story. And what I mean by story, I don't just mean what's happened to them, where they've gone and the events. That's part of it. But I mean the lessons they've learned from that, the wisdom they've gained from that, the failures that they've had, the successes they've had, the credentials they've developed, all of that stuff. There's so many entrepreneurs and business professionals and people who really feel like they have a meaningful message burning inside of them, but they don't realize the great advantage they have already within them. They already have the most valuable asset they could ever have, and nobody else has it. That's what's mind-blowing to me is nobody else has their unique advantage that they have. And yet so many of us we're oblivious to it because it feels normal. And so we trivialize it and fall into a lot of different traps around that and just sit on it and don't fully put it into play and out into the world that can really make the world a better place and make you money at the same time and increase your impact and your influence at the same time as well.
I went years thinking I don't have anything interesting to say. I felt like I wanted to write a book, and it's like, but what do I have
Yeah.
that could make anybody want to read it? So,
Yeah.
what do you say to someone like that?
Yeah. Well, I call that the confidence trap. And the confidence trap goes like this. It's around we have a tendency to deify others and diminish ourselves. And we look at other people and say, oh, their story is amazing. Of course, you should listen to them or look at their life. And what I realized, and then put ourselves down, right? And think I got nothing, you know? And again, I think that's connected to the second trap, which is the normalcy trap, which again is it feels like my story feels normal to me and therefore it's not special to me. But when we put it out there and we begin to share it and other people start resonating with it, we realize the great value of it. The confidence trap became crystal clear to me. I was having lunch in New York some years ago with someone whose last name, if I said it, everybody would recognize the last name. It's very well known. But the interesting about the conversation was that as we were talking, this person was telling me that, hey, when I walk into a room, again, very successful, well known, when I walk into a room, I'm concerned that nobody actually cares what I think. They just want my last name in the room.
Hmm.
And I realized, oh, you're struggling with that same confidence that everybody else struggles with. Okay.
Interesting.
Right? And I think that's the key. I've worked with people from New York to LA and everywhere in between, and everybody has the same challenge. We tend to just diminish ourselves and deify others and lift them up. And so I think one of the keys is recognizing the value of that, of our own story, and being willing to have the courage to put it out there, to have the courage to share it, but not to share it, but share it strategically, right? Not just share it with the world. But the
Yeah.
magic comes, I think, in how you do that as well.
Yeah. I mean, if you tell a story in a way that is engaging, even something that could seem relatively mundane could draw an audience into it.
Oh, sure, sure. I mean, I'm reading a book right now by David McCullough. I don't know if you know that name, David McCullough. Such a
Yeah.
historical narrative expert. I mean, he's not with us anymore, but my goodness, the books he wrote. And
Yeah.
what I'm reading now is The Great Bridge, right? His second book. It took him 4 years to write. It's loaded with minute detail on bridge building, right? Who would have thought that would make a great book? But the way that he tells it is in the context of story. And so you're pulled into this thing about, how they're putting wire strands together to form cables and why it matters. And it's to me it's captivating, but it all comes down to how it gets told, right? How you're
Yeah.
telling the story matters, right? And so like you said, even potentially mundane things can become powerful. And the beauty of that is have come out with so many life lessons from hearing that story, because that story ultimately is not about bridges, it's ultimately about people, it's ultimately
Mm.
about leadership, it's ultimately about those things, and it just gets manifested through the forms of a bridge in that case.
Yeah, that and so I imagine that's what you mean when there's this phrase in your book that jumped out as a meaningful message,
Yes.
that
Yeah.
soul level truth, right? That
Yeah.
a lot of people just overlook or they
Yeah.
underestimate. Uh,
Yeah.
so how would you help someone find that kind of deep kind of gut story
Yeah. Yeah.
that's going to be engaging to an
Yeah.
audience?
Yeah. Well, there's actually a process I take people through. Actually, in our book breakthrough challenge, which we do several times a year, I walk people through a process of how do you get clear on that. But it really comes down to getting clear on, hey, what are you passionate about? Well, what are the things that keep surfacing in you, that keep percolating to the surface? The messages you keep talking about, the messages that other people are telling you, oh, that's good, that's helpful, that it's resonating with people. And a lot of the people that we work with at StoryBuilders, they've seen that happen. They've built a business, they've done something, they've accomplished something, and they've seen certain messages really resonate, and people's eyes light up, and they start nodding, and then, oh, that's good. They start writing it down, right? Or they're taking pictures of their slides, or
Yeah,
whatever the case may
yeah,
be. And so I think a lot of that's already there. And what we do is we come alongside people and really help them get clear on how do you hone that? How do you make it sticky? How do you package it in a way that becomes useful, tangible, scalable, as in depending on what you're trying to do, right? Building your brand, your business, whatever that looks like. But I think it really comes down to taking the time to tap in and listen into what you're passionate about. What's that message? And then it doesn't just stop there, though. You have to also think about it from the other people's perspective, the people you're serving. What do they need? What's resonating with them? And that's really the heart behind the whole storytelling structure that we talk about in the book.
it's fascinating because I listen about, okay, how do finding what you're passionate about. And we're living in an age
Mm.
where we have these social media influencers that really have no life experience, but
Mm.
they're
Yeah.
putting
Yeah.
out content that's going viral and entertaining people. And I,
Right.
I don't know. I don't think of it as story as much as just kind of entertainment, but people are getting
Right.
sucked into that world
Sure.
and and
Sure.
and not really trying to captivate their own
Yeah. Yeah.
passion.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah. Well, it's a great point because there's more stories out there, more content being produced from Netflix and Amazon. I mean, all these stories,
Yeah,
YouTube, for crying out loud, it's all out there. To me, the question is it making the world a better place? Right. And that's the question as a viewer or as a story receiver. I think, is it making me better? Is it positioning me to make the world a better place? Right. Because I think a lot of people are consumed with storytelling that doesn't really improve them at all. And there's a place for that. There's a place for, hey, I'm just going to kick back and watch a story or read a story. I read Lee Child's novels, the Jack Reacher novels. I've been reading
Oh
some of
yeah.
like, there are times where you just have to give your mind a rest and let it, play with the story. That's fine. But I think when our primary story consumption becomes that, then we're no longer growing, we're no longer stretching, we're no longer learning, we're no longer becoming better, and we're not contributing better to others. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think there, and I think the key to that is actually thinking about it from the audience's perspective. What do other people need? And that's really the pivotal flip that takes place at the beginning of any good storytelling process.
Yeah, because I think on the virtual, or the going viral side, it's not what's going to make the person better. It's
Right.
what's going to make me uh, be more interesting and do something stupid that's going to
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
take off.
Yeah. And that's not ultimately that's not sustainable impact. They
Yeah.
people in that mode, they have to keep producing clickbait. They have to keep producing something that will get the clicks because that's what's going to drive their monetization. And the pathway I propose in your story advantage is not the quick hit, instant hit that you got to keep feeding. It's the growing something sustainable, growing something, your story ecosystem is what I talk about, right? So it begins with getting your message maker, I call it. That's your brand story, getting clear on your meaningful message, who you're talking to, how you're talking to them, the whole process of just working on several brand stories today with some of our organizational story partners, getting clear on that. And then when you get clear on that, then how do you multiply your message? Well, historically, there's no better way than through a book. A book becomes a means where it can go places you'll never go, touch more people than you'll ever know. And then beyond that, how do you monetize that message further, whether it be coaching, consulting, courses, membership? There's just no shortage of ways to monetize it once you have that clarity of message. And there's just so much power in that. And that's really what I unpack in the book then is your story ecosystem. How do you build each piece of
Mhm.
that in order to build something that is sustainable and lasting and isn't just, the latest clicks that you're trying to get?
Yeah, but social media is part of that
Oh,
ecosystem, I
sure.
imagine, from a
Sure.
marketing perspective. But it's not
Sure.
it's not the core of the message. It's got to be um,
Yeah.
the book
It,
or
it
the story behind the book.
it can be. Social media can be. It depends on the strategy. And this is why one of the key questions we always talk about is when we're doing a book, what's your story strategy? And that question is this, it's what are you trying to build? Right? We have one gentleman we work with. We're working on his third book right now. He has very little interest in social media. He does some social media. He's not that concerned about it. He's a B2B business, and so he works with a lot of businesses, big businesses we've all heard of, behind the scenes, helping train, equip, lead, all that kind of stuff. And so his plan and his what he's trying to accomplish doesn't really involve social media a lot. Other people we work with, Lewis Howes, for example, School of Greatness, he does a lot on social media, or Dean Graziosi, he's doing a lot on social media, right? Because it fits what they're trying to do,
Sure.
right? And I think that's the key. You can't just say, all right, social media, how do I fit into social media and do something within that? It's step back and get clarity on what you're trying to accomplish. What's your story? And be authentic to that. And then if social media has a role, then plug it in and make it happen there.
Yeah, when I first started my company after a career in the corporate world, I was like, okay, I need a book and I need a podcast because that'll establish some
Mm.
credibility.
Hmm.
Um, I in my mind it was more marketing fluff because I had 30 years
Sure.
of like
Sure.
lived experience and
Sure.
C-suite and whatnot. But
Sure.
I think people need something tangible like that, like a book
Sure.
or a
Sure.
podcast to do that. And what's your
Absolutely.
thoughts? I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we've worked with a number of people. I think of Charles Jones as a great example. He was with Monsanto and retired from there after many decades. I know it became Monsanto, retired from there and went into HR, right? Similar type of space. And he did the same thing. Well, not a podcast. He wrote the book, right? And so the book becomes such a door opener in so many different ways. A credential, and it's easy to think, business professionals that we work with all the time. I've done decades. People know, but a book kind of helps people put you in a box for them. Like, all right, oh, you're an author. I know what to do with an author.
Yeah.
An author is the authority on a subject, right?
Right.
So if you've written a book on it, you've literally written a book on it. You must be an expert on this space, right? So there's that, and then as a podcast host, a show host, same type of feel to it, right? And what's interesting is that often those two can really intersect. As an author and a podcast host, you can be a content creator on the podcast side that can fuel the author, that can fuel your consulting, your speaking, your coaching, all these kind of things, right? It becomes this.
Yeah.
Um, I think Gino Wickman talks about turning the wheel, the kind of nail. You get the momentum going over time, and it takes a while. But the flywheel, once you get the
Flywheel. Yeah.
flywheel going, then you get more traction in that. And that's kind of what we're talking about. Is there isn't an easy button. I don't know if you found that to be true, right?
It is
I,
not easy.
yeah, I talk to people all the time who are like, all right, I'm coming out of my career. I've had success. I'm just going to go over here and plug this in, and it's going to nothing is ever as easy as we think it is. On the other hand, I don't know if you've seen this to be true, Jeff, but nothing is ever as difficult as we think it is when we're in the midst of the challenge. You know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
like nothing's ever as easy, but nothing's never as hard as we think it is too. The tendency is when we meet resistance to think, oh, this is too tough, I quit, I'm out of here. And no, if you actually just keep moving forward, keep pushing through that resistance, keep looking for the answer, you're going to come out the other side. And actually that willingness to push through and not quit will separate you from the rest of the crowd out there as well.
Hey everyone, Jeff here with a quick note from the team at Evolve HR Solutions. If you've been tuning into the leadership puzzle, you know that we're all about finding the right fit for your team. But here's the thing, beyond just talking about leadership, we actually find those leaders for you. So if you're looking for top-notch talent that aligns to your culture and can truly drive the business forward, we're here for that because we specialize in executive search that is so much more than filling a role. We focus on finding that perfect piece of your puzzle. The one that intersects your unique culture with the core capabilities of top talent. So if you're thinking about your next operations, HR, or commercial hire, we need to chat. So visit us at evolvehrs.com. That's evolvehrs.com, and let's ensure you have the right leaders in place. All right, let's get back to the episode. Yeah, that's really profound, and I think it's absolutely right. There's been a couple of times where I'm like, oh, this is just really hard. It'd be so much easier just to go back into the corporate grind, and I'm reminding of the story of the swimmer who was swimming across the English Channel, and it was dark and foggy, and didn't realize that how far he had left, and he decides to turn back, and he was just 100 yards from
Oh,
the
wow.
the
Yeah.
the shore, but he had no perspective if he had just pushed forward. And I keep
Yeah.
thinking, okay, I might just be 100 yards from where I need
Yeah.
to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm always reminded of the story of Glenn Cunningham, who is he was a world-class runner in the 1930s. He was a silver medal winner in the Olympics, 1936. But people often forget that he started out as a 7-year-old boy who, in a horrible accident, he was burned over like 80% of his body.
Mm,
Doctors said he would never walk. Doctors said he wouldn't even live. Unfortunately, his brother died in the same incident, right? So,
mm,
but he simply did this. He refused to quit. He simply refused to quit. So
yeah.
his parents helped him get up and forced his legs to get back to working. And he became known as the kid who ran everywhere eventually. Once he learned how to walk and was able to, he just couldn't stop running and became so fast. He actually was the first to unofficially run a 4-minute mile under the 4-minute mile barrier as a high schooler. And then he went on to his other success. But when I think about that, that's his whole message was you never quit. You keep going, you keep running, you keep moving forward. And here's to me the key. What he did on the track was amazing. But what he did after that was even more amazing because he started a ranch, a home for troubled youth.
Mm,
And over decades, he and his wife hosted more than 10,000
wow.
kids coming through there, just transformed their lives, changed the direction of their lives, all because never quit. Right. And I think that feels like a superpower to me so many times. Like
Mhm.
if you can just not quit, because like you said, you have the temptation, I could go back into corporate, it would be easy. Would it really though?
No,
You
not really. It'd be
know?
soul crushing, but
Right, right. I mean, when you were in there, no doubt you were like, oh, this is so hard and this and this. Right. We tend to forget the challenging things that take
yeah,
place.
yeah.
And we recognize that we're always going to meet resistance. We just don't quit. You just keep moving forward and push through them and learn and grow and apply that wisdom.
That whole concept of resilience is this next generation is trying to learn what
Mm,
resilience is
yeah.
through people teaching them what it is versus I think you and
Yeah.
we learned resilience by just not quitting and getting up and keep going.
Yeah. 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 Well, there's something to be said for hardship. There's something
Yeah,
to be said for challenges. And I think what you're talking about there, as a generation, I don't know that we have had, even my generation. I mean, we think back to World War II and all these kind of cultural challenges, at least in the United States.
yeah,
And my generation didn't have a lot of that, really, comparatively. And the generation that's come even more recently, there hasn't been as many really defining challenges like that. And
right,
so I think I'm not saying we should seek them out and in some kind of sadistic way, but there's a benefit of doing hard things, finding hard things and attempting hard things that grows you as a person and as a leader and expands your story as well. I mean that's really what people want to hear about. Hey, have you encountered hard things? Have you encountered resistance? And what did you do
yeah,
when that happened? Right? Then that
yeah,
becomes really the essence of the story.
yeah, yeah. Well, kind of getting back to the story,
Yeah.
you said something that really resonated with me. It's like your story is not about you, but it is your story is about you, but it isn't for you.
Yeah.
It,
Yeah.
it's an important mind shift.
I love it. Yeah. Muniba Mazari actually was the person who taught me that with her story very briefly. She was in Pakistan, Pakistani woman who was in a horrific car accident. Long story short, again, horribly paralyzed. The doctor said, you'll never walk, you'll never have kids. And she was an artist, and they said, you have to find something else to do because you won't be able to paint. Um, but she refused to quit. But there was a dark time when she was going through that she was crying to her mother, and her mother said, Muniba, she said that exact line is,
Hey, man, and I know you talk about you have a process, but is there something
sure.
that kind of bops people over the head and said, no, stop, take a different approach.
Yeah. Well, I think helping people think of times where they have experienced someone making it all about them. Right. And we've all had those you've in corporate America, I'm sure you've happened many times. You've been in meetings and a leader decides now's a good time to tell my story about such and such. And everybody in the room starts rolling their eyes and thinking, oh my goodness, this is the 12th time we've heard the story. It was boring the first time, it's boring this time. What's the point of this? Right? We've all had those times where either people told a story or they didn't tell it well. And you ended up after you hear it a story wondering what was the purpose of that? I don't even know. And so thinking about that from that perspective of if you want to break through to the next level, then you've got to make it about the people on the receiving end.
Hmm.
It's the same thing with anything that we all know. Like if you go to any retail establishment, pick a department store, you go in there. Um, if they ran that department store based on what works for them, well, there's the warehouse. Go find your stuff. It's in here somewhere. We'd all turn around and walk out and go somewhere
Sure.
else. Right?
Yeah.
So it's that same kind of thing of you want to you're doing a service to other people by essentially what John Maxwell calls, putting the cookies on the bottom shelf for them. So they're easily
Hmm.
accessible. This is what I want. This is like awesome. Not only did I love that, I'm going to tell my friends about it because this is the place to get cookies.
Yeah.
Right? As opposed to, they're out back somewhere. You figured out where they are. We'll get to you later. Right? It really becomes this posture that again, I'm assuming that someone wants to have success.
Yeah.
If they don't, then by all means, do whatever you want with your story, and it doesn't matter because that's probably what you're going to get. But if you're intentional about it, then you really position yourself. Again, it's about maximizing that impact, that influence, and ultimately the income from that.
So how long, I mean, so you've chatted a little bit about your process. How long does it take on average for, if you were to get in and start working with someone to be able to craft their story and figure out the narrative that you could, actually start putting pen to paper?
Mhm. Well, it depends on what we're talking about exactly, right? If we're talking about someone's brand story, figuring out their main message and whether it's individual or organization, that typically is anywhere from 6 to 12 weeks, depending on the size and scope of what we're doing. But if you're talking about creating a book, if we're doing a book from start to finish, typically about 9 to 10 months. If we're doing the publishing and leading the publishing angle of it, about 9 to 10 months, so about a birth cycle, right?
Sure.
To bring a book to life.
Yeah.
Of course, we work with traditional publishers too. We do anything and all things related to books, so all that can vary. But typically, it's going to be about our story creation service about 9 to 10 months to go from start to finish, assuming we're starting at nothing and we're moving to that place. It could be accelerated if there's other content that exists already, depending on the timelines, and
Sure.
sometimes it takes a little longer depending on the author, right? But we're more concerned about getting it done right rather than getting it done quickly.
Yeah.
Right. So one of our core values is excellence. And so if we're going to do it, we're going to do it well or not at all. And so when we work with somebody, we want them to have confidence. And this is our promise when we work with somebody is that at the end of the day, we're all in to make sure that this book is something that you can really be proud of, that is a brand defining storytelling to make that happen.
Now, on having gone through a couple of published books, I'm familiar with kind of the process, but the how much of that time typically for those you work with that are saying, "Hey, Bill, I know I have a story. I'm not sure what it is or how to tell it." Walk through that, that process of helping someone with that you call it art and science of
Yeah, yeah,
storytelling,
yeah, yeah.
right? What does that look like for someone so that they can maybe visualize, oh, if I connected with Bill, then this is what I've got to be prepared to do and
Sure,
what
sure. Yeah, if you think about it from a book perspective, let me walk through a few questions that we ask at the beginning of every project. And this might
okay.
help get the mental juices flowing for people. One of the first questions I should say that we ask is the story focus question. And that is this. I ask this of everybody at every step of the process. That is, if someone were to read your book, let's project ahead, let's pretend the book is up and out and into the world. Someone reads your book and then forgets 99% of everything they read, which isn't far from the truth, right? People
Yeah.
don't retain a lot of that. I'm not saying it's not important, but they don't retain that easily. But if they were to forget most of what they read, they close the book, they walk away. What's the one thing that you would just say, I don't want you to forget this? This is the one thing. If you forget everything else, you've got to remember this. This is the one thing that will really have the most impact for you. And when people ask themselves that question, there's something subconsciously happens at that level that kind of causes that core message to come to the top. What's the one thing that if you weren't here tomorrow, what's the one thing you would want your family to remember about you or from you?
Yeah.
That kind of helps crystallize, all right, what's my purpose here with my family, et cetera. So the same thing with the book, right? So getting that kind of one thing question, because that becomes the tip of the arrow that guides everything else in the book. Everything else in the book development gets measured by, does it move that one thing forward or not? And if it doesn't, why, maybe we don't have time for it. The second question is connected to that, and I call it the needle mover question.
Mm.
The needle mover question is, what kind of impact do you want to make in the world as a result of this book? And this is a bit more of an emotional move here as well, because this is about how do you want the needle to move? How do you want to impact the world? How do you want the world to be different at the end of the day as a result of writing this book? And the first one gets more to the message that you want to share. The second one gets more to the what's the impact you want it to have Like think about what that needs to look like. And I think that that helps emotionally prepare you for the process because as you well know, writing a book can be, you can find yourself in that messy middle and wondering, do I keep going to try to get to the other side of the channel or do I go back? What do I do? And so seeing that impact clearly. Um, the third question is, I call it the ideal audience question. And this is another one that I think a lot of fresh authors don't really invest the time into figuring out. And that is, who exactly is this book for?
Well, it's for
Who,
everyone, of
yeah.
course.
Of course it's for everyone. I've talked to a former congressman once about a book at the beginning of a project. He's like, "Oh, this book is for every American. Every American should read it." It's like, well, what they miss is that a book for everyone is a book for no one,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because no one is everyone. And so we're like, well, it's not for me because I'm not everyone. I'm special. I'm unique, right? And so you have to help meet people where they are. And so
Yeah.
we walk through a process of figuring out what is the core audience, what's that secondary audience, the general audience, and so forth. So all that kind of comes together. But then comes, I think, one of the most important ones, and that is the story strategy question.
Mm.
And that is, how does this book fit in what you're trying to build? What are you trying? What's your bigger picture vision here? Let's step back. Let's see. Let me hear your bigger picture and explain to me how this book would fit into this. And that question can be clarifying because some people at that point realize, I don't think this book does fit in to what I'm trying to build, or I don't know what I'm trying to
Yeah.
build. In which case we should, all right, let's solve that first and make sure there's a reason, not just, hey, if I can just get a book and get it done and get it up and out in the world, again, that'll be the easy button for me. That'll I'll somehow hit, and that's simply not the way it works, right? A book is a door opener. A book is a credential builder. A book is an authority establisher. It does all those things and more, but it isn't magic, right? It isn't somehow if I just put it out there. Even the books that you see out there right now that are the best sellers and all that, trust me, there was a lot of work going in behind it, maybe a lot of investment behind it in order to make those books and put them into that place where they are today. Um, the fifth question, that's a little more complicated that we get into with people, and that's the story structure
Yeah.
question of
Sure.
how do you actually structure the book using our storytelling structure to do that. That takes more time to flesh out, but there is a whole science and art behind that. And I would say the final question is this. I call it the coffee shop question, and it's a super powerful question. And that is, Jeff, I'll use you as an example here, right? So, Jeff, if you were to meet with me, and I said, "Hey, Jeff, I've got a problem that your message helps solve," and we just met up for coffee. Hey, can we just have coffee? I want to get your thoughts on this. What what would you how would you walk someone through the conversation? What steps would you guide them through, would guide me through to move me from where I am to the solution? How would you help me overcome that problem? How would you help me find that solution? And again, what I have found is that when you make it a very casual setting, that's probably something you've already done before many
Yeah.
times. You've had these conversations. Oh, you need to understand this and you need to understand that. And after people dump all that out on the table, we're able to look at that and say, ah, I'm seeing a pattern here. I'm seeing a process over here. I'm seeing how this is coming together.
Yeah.
If we structured it like this and like this and like this, again, I just working with this for an organization today, figuring out how does it all these pieces and parts come together, and this is what we're really good at, right? This is what we're really good at, finding those patterns and connecting them in such powerful ways. So those are just some of the key questions
I
we
love
ask
it.
to really start the process. As you can tell, we like to go deep with people and really establish a strong foundation, a great blueprint, not just for a book, but for a brand story or
Yeah.
whatever resources we're helping people create.
Yeah. No, that's great. I think that'll be like super impactful for the listeners to be able to picture what it would look like to work with you and
Sure.
help get that story. And I guess I'd say for those who just want to write a book and make $1 million,
Yep.
the the numbers don't bear out on,
Sure.
you get a book out and the average person sells 100 copies to their
Sure.
friends and family. So,
Sure. Sure.
but
Yeah. Yeah. You've got to have the strategy behind it. It depends on the book. For some people, frankly, it's a legacy play.
Yeah.
It's something they're trying to leave behind. It's a story they feel compelled to get out in the world, and we help them do that well. But for most of the others, it's a means to an end, right? And that's what you have to understand is that the book becomes this accelerator of other things. It helps all these other things move forward in powerful ways and positions you as an author as this expert in your whatever industry you have. And there are times we'll talk to people and we'll say, you know what, I don't think now is the right time for you to write a book. Frankly, I think you need to do X, Y, and Z first, and then be thinking about this while you do it. But then at a later time you'll be ready to come back and do something really powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's great. So, your book ends with the idea of picking yourself, and so for leaders or anybody who has been kind of waiting for permission or for someone
Mm,
to give them that little push, what would you
yeah,
say to them to
yeah,
actually just do something about it?
yeah, yeah. Well, as you know, in the book, I talk about being a steward of your story. And I think that's a powerful truth for all of us to understand is that we've been given this story that we're living out right now as a steward, that we have a responsibility to do something bigger and better with it, to help other people, to make the world a better place. And this is why I talk about living a story worth telling. For me, my meaningful message is that every story matters. And that doesn't mean everybody needs to write a book, not at all. There are wonderful people. We work with a nonprofit organization recently telling stories of medical missionaries who are embedded in cultures and they've devoted their lives to that. And their calling is not to write a book. Their calling is to help people and do that and be the hands and the feet that are actually helping people do that. Um, so a book isn't for everybody and all that kind of thing, but the core truth is that every story matters and everybody has the story advantage and however they put it into play, they need to take action on it, right? And I think I talk in that last chapter of the book about the role that faith has in that. And I don't mean religious faith necessarily. I mean the role of doing what you believe to be true. And so I think there are many people out there who deep down they're like, I know I need to do something. I believe I have a message. I know,
Yeah.
but I'm afraid. I'm stuck in this. I don't have the confidence. I'm whatever the case may be. And that's what I mean by living that out by faith. Like it takes faith to step out.
Yeah.
It takes faith to step out before you know how it turns out, right? But that is the game changer because once you do step out, once you make that commitment, you begin to see everything differently and opportunities open you never realized, right? And
Yeah.
the challenge I think they have is that they're sitting in a place without moving, right? They're not in motion. They're not doing what they believe to be true. They're saying they believe something true, but they're not doing anything. And if you aren't doing anything, no one knows if you actually believe it or not. You don't even
Right.
know, right?
Right.
Because faith isn't faith until it's tested. So once you begin to take a step, then you begin to see. And the beautiful thing is, once you take that step, your own perspective shifts, right?
Mm.
Now you can see differently because now you've moved and you see things you never saw before, and suddenly things are possible that you never even imagined existed
Right.
before.
Right.
So I would say to that person who's in that place, first of all, get the book. I think it'll be an encouragement and inspiration and actually give you a roadmap for it. But also, it's this mindset shift that needs to take place. Hey, I need to take ownership of it, stewardship of it. I need to do something with it, and it's mine to take action on starting today. What can I do now?
That's great. And so they can get your book on Amazon or wherever books are sold.
It's in all those places. One of the best places to get it is yourstoryadvantage.com because there's a lot of cool bonuses with that
Mhm.
right now that come with that. Yourstoryadvantage.com is one of the best places to get it. And if you just want some free resources, quite honestly, go to yourstoryadvantage.com/free resources. And there's a bunch of tools in there that you can get for free to go along with the book too.
And if any of the listeners wanted to engage with you or your team to help them craft their own story or a book, perhaps, then same, yourstoryadvantage.com.
I would say mystorybuilders.com.
My
Mystorybuilders.com
story
is our main
builders.
site. Mystorybuilders.com/story, and you can just schedule a call. There's no pressure, no obligation. We love hearing stories, and we can help give some guidance on that and tell you, hey, I think you have something. No, I don't think you do yet, or what that could look like. Doesn't matter where you are in the journey. Like I said, we work with people who have well-established brands, people who are just starting their own brand or business. Doesn't matter, but mystorybuilders.com/story and just book some time and we'd love to talk with you.
That's great. MyStoryBuilders.com/stories, and you can get some one-on-one
For,
time with
yeah.
Bill or his team.
/story. Just one.
Story,
Yeah.
just one story.
Just one story.
Even
That's
if you
all.
have many
Even if
stories
you have many,
inside
start
you,
with one. Exactly.
just start with
Focus.
one. That first
Focus.
step. That's
Yeah.
right. Well, Bill, we're unfortunately out of time, but I've really enjoyed our conversation today.
Well, likewise, Jeff. I appreciate your focus on leadership and helping people to actually live out a better story. Because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. We
Yeah.
get caught up in the push and shove and the pull and the tug and all the things on our plate. But at the end of the day, to me, it's about making the world a better place. And stories is some of the best way to do that.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. So, well, thank you for being with us, audience. Thank you for joining us, and until next time, keep leading, keep learning, and keep putting the pieces together. We'll see you soon.